Since 1983, FAME has helped business and education work for Maine. Contact the authority, the Finance Authority of Maine. You're watching Mainebiz Sunday, Maine's business news source.
We're back with Robert Clark, the new president of Husson University. Welcome back. We ended the last segment. We were talking about kind of the international experience that you have and what you're going to be doing, bringing that to Husson as well. Give us some more examples of that. I mean, and how do you work with businesses and policy leaders in the state? How do you think you'll work with them to help, develop the programs we need to really compete in the global marketplace?
One of the important elements is experiential learning, bringing individuals into campuses, ensuring that they are equipped with knowledge that dispels myths about globalization, equipping them with tools, working with state government, departments in commerce, etc., to work with import-exporting training programs, making sure in our curriculum that students are aware of the latest technology for application in global enterprises as well.
Good. What kind of myths are there about globalization?
Well, it's scary that they're going to take all the jobs and move them overseas and et cetera. And what we know is that we have one of the best skilled workforces in the United States, one of the most productive workforces, and that we need to continually evolve the generation of our workforce to meet the needs of the 21st century.
Okay. I'm going to shift on the subject to law school. Once again, the entrepreneurial spirit of Husson last year was moving into developing a kind of a new product line, if you will. Proposing a law school that they would operate, attempting to form the school that would have 30 to 50 students per year. Maine only has one law school now in Portland. But you chose not to seek the American Bar Association accreditation for the proposed school, and that's primarily, and correct me if I'm wrong, why the state Supreme Judicial Court unanimously voted to turn down your request to allow its graduates to take the state bar exam. Tell me more about that process and what your thinking is now.
Well, the American Bar Association has an accrediting process whereby one of their primary criteria to even enter into the process is that your faculty needed to be tenured in academic freedom senses. Husson University voted their faculty to abolish tenure 15 years ago, and therefore it is not part of our institutional structure. And so as a consequence to that, you knew you weren't going to get their approval at the American Bar Association from the start of the equation. And we did not believe it was ethical to have students enter into a program of law and then a year from now perhaps tell them, oh, by the way, we cannot get the American Bar Association accreditation. So the work with the Supreme Court was to say, can we set up an alternative method? California, as an example, has a number of law schools that are accredited by the judiciary in California. So we, in our petitions to the court, were suggesting perhaps they would establish a criteria whereby our law school graduates would be able to sit for the bar exam in Maine.
Okay. My guess is a lot of those facts were known at the time that they were developing the concept for this. In terms of the business plan, was this a case of kind of ready, fire, aim? I mean, you actually end up spending $300,000 in the process of the petitions. How would you have done it differently?
I think that, looking at the investments in prospecting for programs, when you talk about as an institution being nimble, there's a part of you that needs to make some steps forward and testing out some of the waters in this regard, and as a result of that, you move forward.
Yeah.
And
right answer as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it really is kind of that if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to be nimble. Businesses take chances. Business make calculated risks, and they make their opportunity when the markets are available. Sometimes they work.
And I would tell you, in the timing of factors, a similar time period, the school was evaluating whether they should enter into a school of pharmacy.
Right.
That program's gone forward. We have pharmacists in training at this point in time, and so that's part of the entrepreneurial spirit.
Okay, good. Let's talk about just let's do the 30,000-foot view of higher education in Maine, the state of higher education. Where does Husson fall into Maine's kind of overall educational landscape? How do you see it fitting in with all the other universities and the post-secondary world?
I think Husson has a unique position in terms of its perspective on preparing professionals. Many institutions take on the whole gambit of opportunity, and we have had that vision of being Northern New England's premier professional university. And so our goal is to work collaboratively with other entities in higher education, the community college system, to find articulation agreements for them to finish their bachelor's degrees, perhaps go on to graduate school at Husson, fitting into the infrastructure of Maine higher education.
Okay. Just recently in April, the University of Maine system had a workforce summit, and John Doerr, the director of the Maine Department of Labor Center for Workforce Research and Information, was there, and he said, quote, "Higher specialized jobs are no longer the norm. We are increasingly a state with small firms. You need lots and lots of folks who are nimble and adaptable. That means universities need to graduate students with a wide variety of skills needed to run a business." Think you can do that?
And that's exactly what we're doing. It's not do I think we can do it. It's creating a curriculum that allows our students to have that same spirit of entrepreneurship. One of my opportunities to bring to Husson is some background in creating entrepreneurial business training programs. And so where I came from at University of Evansville, our students over the last 5 years had investigated creating about 125 jobs. Not that those jobs would continue. They worked in a teamwork process to create new business environments. And what we indicated to all of our constituents, we didn't believe these students would carry on with these jobs and entrepreneurship after college. But businesses need entrepreneurial thinkers, entrepreneurship in a company. How do we innovate new ideas in creative ways? And that's part of a curriculum challenge that we are working and part of what I bring forward to the Husson model.
Okay. How does Husson, you talked a little bit earlier about kind of the agreements with the university, articulation agreements, university and community college, et cetera. How well does Husson integrate with the university system and community college? Can you share programs? How is that working?
We are working.
There's a perception that there are these very kind of silos, and it doesn't work very well.
And I think that that's one of those issues in higher education in any state, the same concept of silos. And more recently, what schools have found that the collaborative work of articulation agreements ensure that community college students don't need to repeat similar courses at higher education and et cetera, and to make that a seamless process of transition, and that our courses can be shared back and forth across the curriculum to meet the needs of students.
Okay. I'm going to ask you put on your use the crystal ball right now. Let's say Beardsley was there for 23 years. Let's assume you'll be there 20. Gosh, we'll all be very old at that point. Anyhow, let's say you'll be there 20 years. What do you think is going to happen in Maine, and not just Maine, but higher education in general over the next 20 years? When you look at your crystal ball, what do you think is going to happen, and what do you think must happen?
I think that two trends that are going to continue to evolve and be more prevalent is creating more experiential learning opportunities in colleges. The days when you sit in a classroom and you have rows and chairs and whatever are going to transition to more experiential learning. I think our healthcare professions, in training nurses and in training pharmacists and physical therapists and occupational therapists, they already get out and do clinicals, and it's a critical element. One of my goals for Husson by 2015 is that 100% of our students would graduate with experiential learning components to their curriculum.
An English major?
And an English major should have that same type of experiential learning. It's kind of like, I liken it to driver's ed. You read the manual, you know what the rules of the road are, but until you get behind the steering wheel and drive a car, you don't. And we are the driver's ed instructor, if you will, to help that student along. And as a parent, I'm real glad that they had those folks.
Makes sense.
And globalization would be the second piece of that we are much more multiculturally aware and integrated into our economy.
Great. Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to that 20 years. Stick around. We're going to keep you around for our Afterthought segment we're going to do on the web. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
You can catch more of this discussion in our exclusive Afterthought segment seen only on the web. Go to mainebiz.biz and click on the Mainebiz Sunday link. We'll be right back.
Mainebiz Sunday is made possible in part by funding provided by the Finance Authority of Maine.